sun god that had been imported from elsewhere. Then they found ancient records talking about the blonde, tall visitors that were known as the Shamsu Hor, the disciples of Horus. They're nobody different than the Westerners, you see, who I believe either completely brought the cultural elements to Egypt, or at least were major contributors to, to the Amanists and to Egypt. Bringing all of these elements, bringing all these word roots. So, and you're right. One of the word roots, the most important one, was Ari or Aria. That's an old Irish name for the goddess of Ireland, and you find it in terms like Saqqara, right?
Yeah.
In Egypt, you see. You find it in Algeria, right? In Madeira, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You find it in the word roots and the names. You find it in Bulgaria, and even Arabia, right?
Yes.
Iran. The word Iran is nothing but the Farsi language.
Okay, so Michael, you were, just before the static took over there, we were talking about area or different connotations of where this pops up in the names and places. You mentioned Algeria, places like, for instance, how about Armenia? Is that a big area as well?
Yeah, Armenia, you see. We've got like a Sumeria. So, I mean, this could be coincidence or whatever, but, I mean, that term aria or era or era, like Benares, right? People need to start becoming aware of these word roots because they're everywhere. And the word ara or aria simply meant the noble ones, the high magi. And these are the people whose knowledge helped found these cities and these nations. There's no question in my mind at all that the Arya did move west in very early times, both before the Great Age of Catastrophe, and then later there was movements after the Age of Catastrophe, and that these individuals either started a lot of the cultures that we know today, the great civilizations of old, or at the very least were huge contributors, major contributors. And when we're talking about Egypt, I've always said that I believe that as time progresses, we're going to find the evidence for this, and we already are.
Yes. Now, we're talking about the word area or area. What about the connection to Western? Is there any similarity between what the word area or area is and Western?
Well, the word area actually means Western. Iran, like we said, and even the word Syria means land of the Westerners, land of the Arya. The word Ireland, when it was translated into an IR, land, I mean, it's very, very, very basic because land of the R.
Yes.
Western land.
Yeah.
So the word Arya means the West. Yep. Straight up.
Interesting. And, you mentioned that the Druid or Arya were astrologers. But did they not also take care of the Earth, kind of administrators of well, I guess we could refer to it as actually a sick planet, so a planet that needed healing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, my work was very much into that idea that the Druids' function was pretty much like a paramedic would be today. That these individuals had a very close relationship to the Earth. I mean, we already just been saying that they worship the Earth as a goddess. And so, as a mother goddess, in exactly the same way as the Egyptians did, and most of these primeval cultures did. And so, after the Age of Catastrophe, since so few animals and so few human beings were left, the humanity that was left, they were thinking about themselves and their own welfare, but they were also very concerned about the state of the Earth. And so, this elite group of shamanic elders that we're talking about, the Druids, they were very much there to see to the Earth itself. And this implied the building of a lot of stone circles. So when you see Stonehenge, you see Avebury, and you see a lot of these different sites. And people have always marveled at these places. They don't understand that, the big question is, why were they built? And one of the reasons they were built is because this operation of lifting heavy stones and bringing them to a central place had a great deal to do with what is known as geomancy.
Yes.
And geomancy was nothing more than the healing of the earth energy, because they were aware of it. They were aware of ley lines, dragon paths, synchronic lines, axiotonal lines, you see. I've gone into this in all my work. And the Druids were the elite of these groups who absolutely knew how to work with the energies of the earth in order to heal it from the damage that it had received during this unbelievable cataclysm that happened somewhere between 10 and 13,000 years ago.
Now, speaking of old megalithic stone circles, there's also, of course, the theory that these were astronomical markers. Do you subscribe to that idea, Michael?
Oh, yeah, they were, in the same way that even later temples and shrines and buildings are astronomical, because remember, these Druids were very concerned and always aware of the connections between the sky goddess and the earth goddess. They always saw it as being interrelated, and the stone circles were built with these famous standing stones, which were always aligned either to the midsummer point or to the winter solstice or to the equinoxes. The stones were also aligned often to the important constellations and even to individual stars that rose and set. So each stone circle has to be studied on its own separately. It has to be studied in context of why it's placed on that particular part of the earth, what kind of energies of the earth, we're talking geomancy here, are in operation, whether it's whether geopathic, meaning a bad energy place or a good energy place, and they also have to be studied individually based on what kind of constellations they're aligned to. Some are to the sun, some are to the moon, some are both. And incredibly, I would say that some of the most major stone circles in the world are aligned to other stone circles. Each of these different megalithic sites are aligned to other megalithic sites.
Right, like Carl Monk pointed out with his research on the code, right? That there's a whole intricate system between these different locations.
That's right, and exactly. And I had proven this to my own satisfaction back in 1985 when I had gone out into the field in Ireland to do this. Now, of course, it's not easy to do because, remember, these megalithic sites have been terribly tampered with. They've been destroyed by farmers, and just in the same way that Tara in Ireland is now being desecrated, you see, by all these governmental concerns. So, of course, they wanted to mess and tamper and destroy these ancient megalithic sites because the last thing that this orthodoxy today wants you to know is the amount of genius and the amount of astronomical and astrological and trigonometrical and navigational genius that the ancient peoples had. But the fact still remains that, yes, these sites were connected geomantically, astrologically, and so forth and so on, to other sites and also to the various luminaries and constellations. No doubt about it.
Let's talk a little bit about numbers, the sacred numbers of the area, like 3 and 12. And this, of course, we obviously can see pop up in many religions, the Holy Trinity and the 12 apostles, what have you, but also in political orders today. Tell us a little bit about that. Oh, yeah, the number 3. Look how many flags, tricolors. They're even called tricolors. Well, why not 4 colors or 5 colors or, whatever? 3 colors appears on, so many flags of the world. 3 steps up to in the Masonic initiations. 3 chairs in the Congress room. You know what I mean? Yes.
Used to be 3 judges, and the symbol of 3. I mean, in architecture, in state regalia, in the royals. 12, the Roman legions, the Roman priestarchies used to surround themselves by 12, attendants. And all the different gods of the world, like Baldur and Odysseus, and all the heroes, so many heroes. The number 12 turns up in countless situations. In the story of Hercules. Yes. In the story of various heroes of the world, all over the world. And more importantly, you have the same zodiac. There have been variations, but basically throughout the entire world, when you find an astrological people who use the zodiac, it's the 12 signs, and they're identical. The signs are the same, and mostly even the animal, totems are the same. Yes. Like I said, a few variations, but anyone can see that it's one zodiac all throughout the world. How could that be if we've been told it's just all independent, heterogeneous development? Of course, that's a complete another lie. It's just like you were talking earlier about the serpent boats and the dragon symbol. Yes. Well, that's because there was a thing called a dragon court in operation in ancient days. There was a homogeneous worldwide order we're dealing with here, a brotherhood. That the corrupt version of that brotherhood is operating today in the world. So, The zodiac is the same. If you study the zodiac, you find the 12 or 13 signs. You find the lunar zodiac of 13 signs, the 12. You find the solar zodiac of 12 signs. And then you have a stellar zodiac as well. So all these zodiacs are to be found all over the world. Well, who took them there? How come they're so identical? You see, this is another question that a lot of people don't want to ask. The numerology is as important as the etymology.
Indeed. Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are more constellations, of course, in the zodiac than the 12 that are commonly known, and you bring these up now and then, and you put a lot of emphasis on these. Tell us about these other ones beyond the commonly known 12.
Well, this is true for a start. What you're talking about there is the stellar zodiac. That's slightly different than what people know as the Western tropical zodiac. There's at least 76 other constellations, making about 88 in all. And there may even be more than that. But as far as the ancient stellar system is concerned, there was about 88 constellations on what's called the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is nothing more than the passage of the sun around the sky, during the day and the night. That is a path. Astronomers consider the movement of the sun like it's on its own little path.
Yes.
And that line or path, hypothetical line, is called the ecliptic. And it's on that path, and this is for people who have no idea about astrology, it's on that path that the sun moves its own belt. The orbit of the sun passes by the famous 12 constellations, and that's how we get the zodiac. The thing is that, as I said, there are more than just those 12 constellations. Now, I dealt with this in my DVD called The Subversive Use of Sacred Symbolism in the Media, in which I also delved into astrology. Why? Because it turns out that not only do the famous 12 signs of the zodiac, and we're talking about the lion, the bull, the archer, these various symbols of the famous 12 signs, but the other signs, the other 76 signs, those images and symbols keep appearing in the corporate media, in advertising, in logo design, and all the rest of it. And they also appear in the Old Testament, in the Bible. So when you're hearing about Jonah being swallowed by the whale, you see, or, one of the great heroes having to fight a 7-headed hydra. You see what I mean? And or various anecdotes about what Jesus, the miracles he would have done, coming in front of the 7-stick candelabra, and all of this palaver that you read in the Bible can be decoded because those symbols are still astrological. So when you have these morons and idiots who read our work saying, well, there's no connection between astrology and the Bible, that's because they haven't bothered studying any of this stuff, and so they think that you're just talking about, Leo and all the famous signs of the zodiac that they're aware of. They haven't bothered to study the subject. They're just reacting, and they don't know that the symbols that are in the zodiac, you are finding them mentioned in the Bible, period. Whether it's the burning bushes, you know what I mean, or the serpent and the staffs that you find Moses and the Pharaoh, doing that bit. Yes. Or the mention of the great river of initiation, or even characters like John the Baptist, or the leper, you know what I mean, or the donkey that Jesus rides into Jerusalem. You see, well, that's a symbol of cancer, the sign of cancer. But if you didn't know that, well, you're probably going to believe the story as it's written, thinking that really happened, instead of realizing, no, it did happen, but it happened up there in the heavens, not physically on earth at any physical Jerusalem. So this opens the whole can of worms, you see, into the study of astrotheology, to realize how you can decode all the scriptures in the Bible. And I don't just mean the Bible itself. I'm talking about all the other apocryphal scriptures as well. You have to understand this also impacts things like the Gnostic Gospels. It impacts the Book of Enoch. It impacts all what's called, these Essene books.
Yes.
And all the other books that were left. Yeah, the whole world of what is called, Judeo-Christian scriptures can all be decoded from the Book of Revelation into the Book of Enoch, into the Book of Jasher, and all the other, miscellaneous books that we're talking about here in religion. And the elites in Christianity and Judaism know that. That's why those books were expurged in the first place, is because they contained too much obvious astrological information, and people would have spotted that right off. So they purged them from the Bible. And all that was left in the Bible was the stuff they thought, might be able to, appear to be history and appear to be biography.
Yes.
My work points out that it's not history and it's not biography as much as it is mythology and astrotheology.
I just want to spend a few minutes and ask you about this, because I think that this is fascinating. Talking about